I'm representing the eBed team this morning. With me, I've got Jax and Steve, and Jax is our Education Development Officer, and she's going to be talking to us this morning about how to teach on BBO, Bridge Based Online. So I think this is a topic that's going to be really, really important for teachers. A few weeks ago, I don't think any of us could have imagined, that we would not see our students, that we would be isolated, keeping away from everybody. Bridge clubs would be closed. So we're addressing the situation at eBed and hopefully putting lots of support in place for you to be able to teach online. So first thing that's going to happen this morning is I'm going to go over to Steve. We're on Zoom this morning. If you haven't used Zoom much at all, Zoom, Steve is going to take you, Steve is our project manager, and he's going to take you through a few housekeeping details about Zoom, how to take part in the presentation. And after Steve's told you those few important details, we're going to go straight over to Jax for the main part of our presentation today, which is about teaching using BBO. And then we'll have some questions at the end. So if I can now go over to Steve. Steve, are you there?
I am indeed. Hopefully everybody can hear me. First of all, yes, this is a tutorial delivered by Zoom. It's as well as being on Zoom, where we actually have hit the limit of 100 participants. It will also be streamed via Facebook, and hopefully on the page you can see the Facebook invite page. So if you know anybody that's trying to get on and isn't able to, then they can get through on this Facebook page. It's also on Twitter. And we will, importantly, you need to know that the tutorial will be recorded, and this recording will be made available on the Teachers Zone homepage. So please be aware of that when it comes to the questions and answer session at the end. Okay, during the presentations, only the host's microphones will be unmuted by myself, as to allow people to talk. As you could hear there, Lorna was able to get in. So what we need to do basically is we need to use the chat function to ask questions at the end, and then I, as the host, can unlock the person, or at least read out the questions to the host. So let me just show you. Hopefully you can now see my Zoom screen. With Lorna in the middle. Let me just check that. Yes, that's right. And you can see also in here, you can see the controls that are down here. So if you don't know where the chat is, you've got a chat button there, which if you press the chat, you can then see a chat here. Okay. So what you can do here is you can write a message, which, because I put to everyone can see. And so that is the way of sending a chat. Now, if for some reason or other you wanted to send a chat to a specific person, you can click on this button and that allows you to send a chat. So that will be the chat function that we will be making use of. And as you can see here, you can see we actually have 100 participants on this call. Okay, so that's the chat function, and we'll be using that after the meeting to ask for your feedback. Okay, so that's what I've just done, a brief tutorial on the use of the chat function. Otherwise, what we will be doing, maybe I'll pass you over to Lorna, who can carry on from now.
Right. Okay, all right, thanks very much. Steve, I think you're still on screen share.
I am, deliberately for the moment, yes.
And can I just say that as teachers, we all have to learn this technology. So If we make a few mistakes today, we are human. And always remember that you as a teacher, you're human as well. And your students are going to absolutely love the experience of learning online. So if I can just hand you over now to Jax Morcombe, who is our Education Development Officer. And Jax is going to start talking to you now about how to teach on BBO. Are you there, Jax?
Hold on. I have to find Jax to unmute her. There you are, Jax.
Am I unmuted?
We found her.
Fantastic. A very warm welcome to you all, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name's Jax Morcombe, and I am a teacher, and I'm also a county director. And I'm going to talk to you today about using Bridgebase Online for teaching purposes. And what we're going to be focusing on is just small table numbers, small groups of students to begin with. First of all, I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to be looking at some learning outcomes for today's lesson tutorial. So our learning outcomes for today are going to be looking at teaching tables and the setting up of teaching tables in BBO. We're going to be looking at deal files, how you create and how you upload deal files to Bridgebase Online. And then we're going to be delving into playing history, how we save and how we access playing history within the site. And also, finally, from our students' point of view, we're going to be looking at how we navigate key areas of Bridgebase Online. It's very important that your students are able to find you as a teacher at all times when they are using Bridgebase. So what I'm going to do with you now is share with you my Bridgebase Online. And you can see Bridgebase Online thinks that I'm not there. So this will be your home screen for BBO. And you can see immediately that what it's done is it has logged me out to start with. And so I need to get back online. This will happen to you. What happens with BBO is it does get quite loaded with users at certain times of day, and it can throw you out. And so if you are teaching, a really top tip for teaching is to choose your teaching times too early in the morning if you can. The later on in the day, it can get very busy and it will log you out. So here we are on the home page of BBO. I am just going to try and highlight my cursor with a spotlight to make it a little bit easier for you to see what I'm doing. This is called the lobby when you're in this area. And when we look at the chat functions later, what's going to be important is that you remember where the lobby is. When you talk to the lobby, you are talking to everybody in the main area of Bridgebase Online and not to the people at your table or the students around you. So just remember that when we focus on chat. What I want to talk to you about at the very beginning is your own username. If we go up here to the right-hand corner, you'll see my username is Jax Teach for this demonstration. And if I click on that, you will get details shown about me. You can see that I created this login only recently for demonstration purposes. I only have 21 logins. So if we go down here and look at that login number, it says 21. This is quite important because I am seen as a new user as far as BBO is concerned until I get my logins to over 100. Now that has implications for you as a teacher into what you are allowed to do within BBO until you get your logins over 100. You won't, for instance, be able to set up team matches, which can be very useful when you're teaching. And you will be barred from certain areas if you want to play as a new user. You can actually get your logins up to 100 very quickly by literally clicking in and out, logging on and off. You don't have to play 100 tournaments, you just need to clock on and off. And my tip to you would be to do that quite quickly and no longer be a new user. The other thing we're going to look at is something down here called board completion rate and tournament completion rate. These are quite important on Bridge Base Online, and they are a reflection of your behaviour as a player and a user of BBO. And your board completion rate starts off at 100%. And every time you play a board, not in the teaching rooms, but outside of the teaching rooms, and you don't complete a board, it creates a black mark against you and your completion rate goes down. This is quite important that your students understand this and you understand this, and we get into really good habits for when we move out into other tables in Bridge Base Online and we keep our board completion rate high. So as a teacher, try and encourage your students to finish the boards that are in play. If you want to move on and discuss something else with them, there's a claim button. But it's a good habit to get into early and make sure your board completion rate and the habits that you're developing within BBO start and last like that and carry on. I just want to show you now, before your lesson begins, there's some really crucial things that you need to communicate with your students. That is that they need to find you on BBO, and you need to be able to communicate with them at any time. Now, you may want to use Zoom as we are and keep that audio on in the background while you are talking your students through the use of Bridge Base Online. You may want to keep another a different device open and use WhatsApp or some other platform to do that. But remember that at any time, these can go wrong, and they will. They have with me, with students. You have great plans for your lesson, and then people can't log on to BBO or something fails. So it's very important that people can find you, that if your audio goes down and you can't any longer talk somebody through what happens, tell them in advance how to find you. And I'm going to show you how you do that. So it's important that your student knows your username on Bridge Base Online before you begin, and it's important that you know the usernames of your students and their contact details. Once your students know your username, you need to talk them through this process. There are some tabs on the right-hand side here. You can see messages and you can see people. If you click on the people tab and look down the bottom of the screen, you'll see something that's grayed out. It's quite difficult to find. It says add friend. And if you click on that, you can type in the usernames of your students, which I suggest you do ahead of your class. And crucially, you tell your students to click on your and add you as a teacher as a friend before the class. You press add, and then they appear in your friends list. The button down here shows all friends that are offline and online. You can see I've just added Jax M, and there I do appear up here. One thing that you can show your students is if they can't find you at any time and communication breaks down, they can click their people tab, they can click on your username as a teacher. And if you can see on the right hand side of my screen here, there's a little blue button and it says join. If you click that, your students will be able to find you in the room and at the table that you're on at any time. And this is very important. So make sure you send out instructions or talk your students through this step before you begin. It will save you a lot of time. Believe me, it saved me loads. I just want to talk to you about another function that's quite useful just in case communication dries up. In your account settings, there is a button here called settings, and these are your general settings for Bridge Base Online. If you click on that, then you can basically drill down within these settings and you'll come to chat. We're going to talk about chat later, but you'll come to the settings on chat and you'll notice that there is this line saying speak chat. If you enable that facility, then if all of your other communication, audio communications go, when you type in to the chat messaging system within BBO, it will actually give a voice activated response. And so if your students enable that, then you have all lines of communication available to you within BBO open before your lesson starts. And so this is a good place to begin. So now we've dealt with that, and one way to shut down these tabs and maximize your screen for playing is to tap the message button a couple of times, and we end up with a much larger screen for us to play with. So we're back in the lobby, we're back into the main area of BBO, and today we're going to be focusing on the teaching tables. So if you follow me down to the practice tables, this is where we're going to begin. We click on that, and these are the 3 tables that we're involved in from a teaching perspective. We have a bidding table at the top, we have a teaching table, and a bridge master. The thing that I'm going to focus on today is the teaching table. That is because most of the controls when you're setting up a table are the same, whatever table you're setting up. So I don't need to repeat those. And the bidding table, you can play around with yourself after we've looked at a teaching table. But needless to say, if you have 2 students that just want to practice bidding, is what it says on the tin, you can go into the bidding table and they can bid in an uncontested auction and just carry on playing. So we're going to concern ourselves with the teaching table now, and I click on teaching table. And I'm taken into this screen. Now, this setting is the same, as I say, for any table that you set up. These are default settings that appear when you want to set up a table. And let's look at each one in turn. On the teaching table, the scoring, you don't have any options whatsoever. The score, you just get the table score at the end of play for any particular board, and there's no function to change there. Description, you can write a description of your table. Let's put Jack's Friendly Tuesday as our description. You can call your lesson whatever you like, and that's where it goes in there. Now we come down to the main options. Kibitzers. If you're teaching and you have more than 4 students in your lesson, you may well want to have your other students kibitzing at your table. In order to allow them in, this button needs to be enabled, allow kibitzers, or permission required to kibitz. If you disable this function, then they will not be allowed into your room. This is by default, it actually allows them in, so you don't have to worry unless you disable it. This is what it says on the tin, allowing kibitzers to chat to players. We've talked about chat, and we're going to be looking at it in a moment. But if that's enabled, anybody watching around the table will be able to chat to those playing. These 2 functions are quite interesting from a teaching point of view. If you know exactly the usernames of the students that you want to join you, you're very clear that nobody else is going to join you, that you don't know their username, then you can choose to lock the room. You do that by clicking these options. And you'll notice what's happened now I've locked the room is I've got a lock icon on the seating areas within my table. That doesn't mean that they're not allowed in. They can ask to join, and I will get a notification giving me a username and asking me if I'm happy for them to join. So if you know the usernames of all your students and you don't need to keep it open, then this is a good function for you. Be very aware that if you just allow kibitzers and you don't enable this function, then you really can't control who comes into your table. It can be anybody that can find you, and you will have to deal with that. So be aware that when you allow kibitzers generally, it could be anybody within BBO that comes to your room. The last function that says invisible, if you click on that, all that does is make sure that in the listings, in the main area of BBO, there are table listings, and the name that we've given to our table can be listed. If you don't want listings anywhere within BBO of your tables, you click the tab for invisible and you won't appear anywhere in a listing. So I'm quite happy with the default instructions for my table. I don't mind other people joining, they're totally welcome. And what I do now is I reserve my seats. The great benefit of BBO as a teacher in the teaching table is that you can reserve all 4 seats for yourself. You can't do this anywhere else, but on a teaching table as a teacher, you can reserve them all. And you reserve a seat by literally clicking on the seat, and you get this little pop-up, and it asks you to type in a username. I'm going to put in Jack's Teach, and I'm going to reserve this seat for myself. You click OK, and you can see that I have just reserved that seat for myself. Then you populate the other seats with your students. By the way, when you enter your student's name in the friends list or anywhere, it's not case sensitive, so don't worry. You can put it in any case, it will accept it. Another benefit of populating your friends list, as we looked at earlier, is that you don't need to remember your student's name. When you type in the first letter, they appear, and it makes it quite easy to just add them to your table. So I am going to populate my table with my students for today, which are Steve and Lorna, who you have already met. And once I've done that, I'm ready to start my table. You can start your table without anybody allocated to a seat, but beware, if you start your table without anybody allocated, and you have your room open to anybody within BBO, somebody could actually join you at your table and go and sit in one of your seats. You can remove them. As host of a teaching table, you have ultimate control. You can take people on and off tables, but it's not necessarily the politest thing to do. So maybe it's better to reserve your seats for your students in advance. What happens when I populate my seats within my teaching table from a student's point of view is they are offered an invite to join my table. I don't know, Lorna, if you want to share your screen.
Right, just 1 moment. I might end up taking over your screen though if I do that.
I can stop screen share and you can share your screen and show everybody what it's like from a student's point of view. I've invited you to join a table. Maybe you want to just show the invite.
Right.
Okay, so this is a really good example, everyone watching, because this will happen to your students.
Okay, I need to just come clean here. I've got 2 secret identities, you see. I've set up 2 tables and I've logged in as the wrong one. So if I just log on as Teach 2020, I should see the invite. There you go.
And so this is from the point of view of your students, and this is quite important when you are teaching, because it's very easy to talk to your students and start describing what you are seeing, but remember every time that you are not seeing the same thing as your students. And so, Lorna, if you just join my table.
Okay, so I mean, as a student, I would be saying, you would be saying, join my table, and I'd be saying, hang on a minute, there's this box here that says play in EBU tournaments. Yep. So the student has to minimise that.
You minimise the invite underneath, but don't worry, there's another way, and so we can describe. And so if you add me as a friend, am I added on your friends list? There's another way of you finding me.
Actually be on my, you should be a friend already.
Okay, go into the people tab. Yeah, well done. And then click on Jack Teach. This is what I was describing to you earlier. If the invite gets lost or your student doesn't click on it, they can find you. So click on Jack Teach. And then join me, the little tab at the top. Then join, and that should take you straight to my table. And there you are.
There we are.
So, John, can you join my table, please? And then go and find me. Sorry, another student needs to find me. So one thing while we're on Lorna's screen that I just want to share with you that is quite important is, if you notice, Lorna is at the bottom of the screen. She's south anyway, but she is at the bottom of the screen here. Your students, when they are playing bridge, whatever orientation they are at the table, they will appear at the bottom of the screen. So don't describe your table orientation, because it will be different whoever is playing. So Lorna, if you want to give me the screen back, we'll come back to the teaching table.
Oh, hang on a minute. Right. Right. I'm working on it.
So the other things, while Lorna's looking at that, the other things to remember from a teaching point of view, thank you very much. We'll actually go back and we'll look at my table. This is now my table again, and this is from my perspective, everybody. So Lorna, you need to go back into your teaching table. You can see that Lorna went in there and she's disappeared.
Okay.
So if you go through the same process and sit on my table, that would be fantastic. You can see that I have populated my own table here. It says Jack's Teach, this is me. I have a crown, which seems terribly important, but sadly it's not. It means that I am the host of the table, that's all. Your students, once they receive an invite, will get taken straight to the table, but there's often quite a lot of problems and they often struggle to find you. That's the instructions I've just gone through. If they don't find you and you want to populate that seat with somebody else, you click on the tab and you get this list. You can remove people at any time, just remove them, or you can remove and then reserve somebody else. So as teacher, you have absolute control over what goes on that table. And I can see Lorna still hasn't joined me at the table at the moment. While she's trying to find me, and if she doesn't, I'll replace her with myself, I just want to go through some other controls before you start your teaching table. There's a blue box up here, and it's affectionately known to BBO users as the blue hamburger, but this contains a lot of your controls. What you need to be doing is clicking on the blue box, and the table options are the options we just looked at. I'll click that up again. You can at any time go in and change those and amend them, and that will reorder your table. But there are some further teaching options right at the bottom of your screen at teaching options. And these control the kibitzers, the students that you have that are in your room that are watching. You can control the view that they have at the table. If you look on the left-hand side, this actually allows user-controlled kibitzers, which means at the moment, if you're user-controlled, if you're user-controlled, you basically see what your teacher is seeing on the table. If you can change that to show south, or you can change that to show east. Say you had a student that you really wanted to share with one person, one player. You had a kibitzer and you thought, actually, I'd like east and the kibitzer to be collaborating together, to be talking and chatting over a hand. You could just show them East's cards and they could talk together and they wouldn't see anybody else's hand. You as teacher, we'll see in a minute, what I'll do is I'll populate Lorna's table with myself because she's not appeared.
I have joined you, honestly. This is what happens sometimes. BBO takes a little bit of time to react, doesn't it?
It does sometimes. Okay, so you've got my screen, have you? Because according to mine, you're not sitting at my table.
Yeah, I have joined you, but I'm just not there yet.
Okay, because it's taking a while and because I'm showing the screen, I'm actually going to show. I've tapped on Lorna's seat, and I am going to sit there myself. When you populate all of the chairs within your teaching table, the deal automatically comes out. And this deal is a random deal and it appears on the table. We go back to those teaching options that I was talking about before. you will see that actually as a teacher, you can see all 4 hands. You can see what I'm seeing. As a teacher, I can see all 4 hands. My students, for instance, Steve, who's playing North, will just be able to see his hands and not the others. But I can change that in these controls. I just mentioned the Kibitzer. I could put the Kibitzer just be able to look at Steve's hand, for him to see from Steve's perspective what he would be bidding. Or I can allow the Kibitzers to look at everything like I can. I mean, I have ultimate control over that. But maybe you want all of the players to look at the perspective that you have as a teacher, and you want them to see all hands. And you can click that down the bottom there and allow everyone to see the same thing as you. So if you don't enable these functions, just be aware that your students will just see their own cards as if they are playing. I'm going to put my spotlight back on so you can see quite easily. And those functions can be changed at any time. So now we're back on the teaching table. We have been dealt a random deal, and you'll notice that the crown is the teacher. You can, if you have problems, you can populate as many positions on the table as you like. And you can see that Steve's tab is yellow. The yellow tab means that it's either your turn to bid or your turn to play. And so basically you have to do something when your tab turns yellow. And Steve, if you would like to bid, please. Anything you like. So Steve has made a bid of 1 heart. And then John, if you would like to make a bid. And now it's come round to me, and I just want to show you this. When it's your turn to bid in Bridge Base Online, you get up this box, and it allows you to put in the level, 1, and it allows you then to put in the denomination underneath. One thing I want to show you that suddenly changed because the bidding has occurred is if we go back to our blue box, you'll notice you have a new function in there saying undo. This enables your students to take back a bid that they have made, and it will automatically get rid of that bid, and they can have another go. They can bid again. So that's a function that appears only when the bidding starts. So if we all just want to go around and pass, John, if you pass, we're not going to be playing a normal hand. I just want to be able to go around the table and finish the auction. So now we have finished the auction. And you'll notice that East has got a yellow bar, and that means that it's East's turn to play, to lead, and that you play a card by highlighting that with your cursor and tapping on it. And you'll go around the table. You know, I spoke to you earlier about completing boards is quite important within BBO. If as a teacher you've just demonstrated something and you want to finish, there is this claim button down here at the bottom. And if you click on your claim button and you can claim the rest, you can finish the board. And now the board has finished and completed. I just want to talk to you about a couple of other functions before we leave the teaching room and look at deal files. And that is down the bottom of your screen, you'll notice that there is the chat function. You'll see a blue box, and the blue box at the moment says Kibitzers and a message next to it. If you tap on the message, you can type in a message, and that will go to the Kibitzers that are watching within your table. If you click on the blue box, you'll get some other options. Private is what it says on the tin. If you click on private, you can just have a conversation with one other user, and it will just be between the two of you. If you click on table, you will talk to your whole table. And if you notice, there is lobby at the top, and lobby will be speaking to everybody within Bridge Base Online. So please be careful if you click on lobby and type in, goodness, Jax has got a lot to say for herself today, she's going on a bit, and send it. It will be going to an awful lot of people. When I took you to your settings at the very beginning, I showed you the options for chat to be voice activated. In there, there's also an activation for lobby chat. That is automatically disabled unless you change it. So you won't get the chat from the rest of BBO unless you want it. I'm just going to demonstrate to you. So I type in here anything that I want to say. I want to say good good play. I'm encouraging my students. And you can hear that's voice activated now. If my students have voice activated, they would also hear that. And that can be very important if your students are lost and you've lost communication with them, and sometimes they're not looking in the right place. It's a good channel to keep open. The last function in the teaching room that's also useful is this. On the right-hand side, there's a voice function. We click on that and we get a box up here. And this enables you to talk to each other within the room. I must admit, from my point of view as teaching, I have used this and it has been quite unreliable, but that may be my internet connection. It may work well for you, but some students really enjoy this. You can click on it and put in your username and add yourself. And then you'll notice you get a button saying start speaking. If you click on this, you can see it's connecting. And then you can type in the usernames of your students. You can all just get rid of your devices and Zoom, whatever you're on, and just be talking within BBO. So that's another option for you when you are teaching. So that's all of the functions that I want to talk to you about within the teaching room. What I want to look at now is how you save your deals. And this is very important because playing on Bridgebase Online, from a teaching point of view, it enables you to look at all of your students' play and analyze it and give constructive feedback. You can give feedback from your lesson, or your students can send you their play that they have been using, when you've not been at the table. And let me show you how to do that. We're going back to our tabs on the right-hand side and we're looking at history. We click on this and we get up another box. You can see immediately that what has appeared is the hand that we have just played, 1 heart plus 6, because we claimed. If you don't save your hands in Bridgebase Online when you're in a teaching room, they will not be saved. So it's quite an important thing, if you would like to go back over some of those hands, to save them. And I'll show you how to do that. So this is the board we just played. You'll notice it's being replicated down here. If you click on the blue box again, you'll get a pop-up, and within that, it will tell you to export. Some of these other functions are very useful. This is where you can advance that deal card by card and go over the bidding and the play. And there's also double dummy available to see exactly how the hand could have been played if everyone saw the cards and played it perfectly. For now, to save it, we export, and we have quite a lot of functions. I'm not going into it in depth. The easiest one to do is to save the deal as, and you will get a pop-up. You will get folders on the left-hand side, and you can name your board. I'm going to name this Jack's Teach, and you just press a folder to save it in. I'm going to save this one in my favorite hands. That is now saved. So your teaching table, if you click on a folder, it is now saved, and I'll show you where to retrieve it. So this is important. Don't forget to do this if you want to start your next lesson by going over some of the play, or you want to give feedback. You need to go through this process. So what we're going to look at now is a count on the right-hand side here. If we click on this, we will see that there is a tab called Deal Archive. We go into Deal Archive, and the folders that we just looked at, these are where your folders are stored, and this is where all of your hand records are kept. If I go into my favorite hands, you can see the deal is there. The board that we just played and saved, that is where it's appeared. So you click on a folder that you have already uploaded, and the deals underneath appear. What we're going to look at now is how to upload deal files to the table. And now those of you that are teaching with Bridge for All Book 1 and Book 2, what we want to do as teachers is to be able to deliver our lesson and to be able to use the deal files that actually illustrate what we've just learned within our lesson. So I'm going to show you how to do that. First of all, you will be going onto the Teacher Zone and downloading the LIN files. Bridgebase Online only deals with LIN files, and so we have converted the files to LIN and put them on the Teacher Zone. So you go into your Teacher Zone and you download the LIN files onto your computer that are relevant either for continuing bridge or beginning bridge. When you go through that process, please make sure that you look and it's shown in folder where your downloads are saved, so you can find them easily when you go through the process I'm about to show you. So now, how do we get our downloaded files imported into BBO? Well, we click on DL Archive and we see this plus button on the right. We click on the plus button, and you'll notice it's actually brought up an untitled folder. If we click on the edit button, we can call that folder whatever we like and say that I've just taught or I'm about to teach a lesson on transfers. I will label my folder transfers. I press click and I've now created a folder. That folder is empty, but I have labeled it and created it. If I click on that folder, you'll notice two buttons appear at the bottom. There's lots of blue buttons in BBO, and here are two more. There's one down here that says import LIN file, and this is the one we want to concern ourselves with. So I click on that, and I get a pop-up, and you'll notice that it says choose file under here. I click on choose file, and it takes me to my download folder, which I've downloaded and you can download from the Teacher Zone. And I simply find the LIN file that I want to import into Bridgebase Online. I happen to know that transfers is C17H3, so I click on that, and you'll notice that that has appeared in the pop-up box, choose file C17H3 LIN. I then click on import, and with a bit of luck and a fair wind, the files have been uploaded successfully to Bridgebase Online, and I have that yellow confirmation. Once you have the confirmation, you can click out of that box and go back over to your folders, and you should see that they have miraculously appeared. They haven't yet. When you click on your file, there you are, it takes some time sometimes to appear. You can see now that the deals underneath, these are all the boards that I've just imported into my folder, have just appeared underneath, and here they are. I can click on a board and it will open a pop-up. You see on the left-hand side, that's the board I've just imported. I can check that it looks reasonable. That looks like a OneNote Trump opening, and that looks like it's going to be a transfer. So it looks likely that I've got the right files, which is good news. So that is how you import a file into BBO. Before we finish, I just want to show you one other thing that you can use to import files, and it's a rich source of deal files for you as a teacher. If you look at any bridge websites, now it doesn't have to be your local club. You don't have to be a member of this particular club, but bridge webs, if you find a bridge club site, and here's one, it happens to be my local club, but you don't have to be a member, and you can log in to results tab. You'll get up a results tab like this. If you look across to hands on the right-hand side and click on that tab, you'll notice that you get up a list of information, and underneath it says file format and it says LIN. You can click on LIN and click on download as LIN. You'll see my download is starting down here. I look at my download and look at show in folder, so I know where it's being saved. And I now have all of those deal files for that evening's bridge in my local club, and I can upload them or import them into BBO in exactly the same way that we have just demonstrated. So that's a very rich source of deal files. You don't need to be a member of these clubs. You can access Bridgebase, you can access Bridge Webs and do the same for yourself. I think that is enough for first introduction. I hope I haven't gone too quickly for you. If you feel that I have, we will be placing the salient points on the eBed website for you to go over at your leisure. But now I think I'd like to go back to Lorna and open for any questions that anybody has on the use of Bridge-Based Online. And I hope you all really enjoy teaching on it as much as I have. Lorna.
Okay, thank you, Jax. That was absolutely fantastic. I'm sure that people have taken lots of notes and they've got some questions for us. I've seen some questions in the chat box already. Do you want to keep the screen share, or?
It's up to you. I can put it back. I've got rid of it for now.
We might need the screen share back if there's any particular questions. Can I? Now, if you wish to ask a question, then I think you need to do a hand raise. Steve, did you explain how that happens?
I was going to say is I think with this number of people to try and get people asking questions verbally is going to be very difficult. Okay. So I think the best, I mean, obviously with a smaller group, that's what you could do. But with this number where we've got 99 participants on, I think the best way is for people to actually type into chat, and we'll try and deal with it from chat. Okay.
Okay. So there are some questions in the chat already. So if myself, Steve, and Jax can just sort of answer these. How to get red spotlight, please?
If you're in Zoom, there is a taskbar at the top. I can't demonstrate this to you. Steve might be able to share his screen and demonstrate. If you are screen sharing on Zoom, there is a taskbar at the top and it says annotate. And if you click on annotate, there is a function saying spotlight. Is underneath there, and if you click on spotlight, your cursor will go red. It's really important when you're teaching. There's some areas of Bridge-Based Online that are grayed out and they're quite difficult to spot, so it's a very useful tool.
Right. Okay.
Oh, and by the way, can I just add, that taskbar, from your students' point of view, they can't see it. It looks to you like it obstructs your screen, but it doesn't. Your students can't see it. If you minimize it, it will get rid of the spotlight. So you just have to move it around and bear with it.
Right. Okay, so we've got another question. This seems okay for a group of 4, but not so suitable for teaching a larger group. So, well, I think you can have kibitzers, obviously. You could certainly have more than 4. You could have 6 or 7 people. You can have some people taking turns to join a table. Certainly one of the things that we might be able to do another tutorial on in the near future, Jax has mentioned Teams. So it is possible to set up Teams on BBO. So we could certainly do a tutorial in the near future with that. Jax, could you?
Can I add something to that? Yeah, there are many things that you can use on BBO to teach larger groups. It's really beyond the remit. Today, I don't have time to cover it, but there are lots of things you can do. Teams is just one of them if you have 2 tables, but Bridge-Based Online allows you to be a director. At the moment, directors are limited. Bridge-Based Online aren't giving any more licenses out for free tables. But there are initiatives that are going on, and it's a fluid situation. And your club may well be allowed or given access to their own licenses to run their own tournaments very soon. This is from a teaching point of view, will allow you to run a supervised play session or a session for as many people, as many tables as you like. So it is a changing situation. If you can find yourself director status, you can do whatever you wish. You can set up tables in casual rooms. One thing I forgot to mention, that if you're a host on a teaching table and you leave that table or you get thrown out of the table collapses or your students will be thrown out. That is not the same in a casual room. You can set up a table in a casual room, populate it with your students, leave, set up another table, populate it with your students, leave and set up another table. And you can do that. I'll demonstrate how to do that in a different tutorial, but it is possible. There are lots of options for you.
Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for that, Jax. We were hoping to give you a little rest after you'd done that half-hour talk, but you're answering all the questions.
I did see another one in chat. Do you mind if I answer that? And it was a question from somebody about the use of robots. And there was one thing that I didn't go into. Robots on BBO, you need to have paid in dollars in order to use robots on BBO. Once you've actually put some dollars into your BBO account, you can play with robots. One thing to remember and tell your students if they want to do this is that BBO is an American site, obviously, and most of the card play on BBO is standard American or 2/1. They're not playing ACOL generally. And so the robot spinning system might not be in accordance with your teaching methods. But if your students or you put BBO dollars in your account, you can get a robot and you can put a robot on a table and you can use them within your teaching room. It gives you the facility to do that. There are two types of robots within BBO. There are tournament robots, which are better quality, better standard of play than the robots in the teaching room. They basically just have more simulations over and over and they're more reliable. But it is a facility you can use.
Right. Well, I've learned something about robots there. I didn't know that there were more than one sort of robots. I did know that they do teach, they do play the American system. So that's something for you to obviously, draw your students' attention to. And as Jack said, if you set up a table for 4 of your students and they are together, then obviously they'll be playing the system that you've taught them. So let's see if we've got any other questions. There was one about converting converting files to LIN files. Can I convert PBN files to LIN? There is a very good online converter. There is a link on our teachers forum actually, and it's also on our teacher zone on the eBed website, Teacher Zone. So the Teacher Zone is for members of EBTA, the English Bridge Teachers Association. We also have a teachers forum. So if you go on the eBed website, you'll see a link for teachers forum. And if you join that forum, this is also a really fantastic source of information. And where you can ask questions exactly like the ones we're seeing in the chat box today. You can ask questions and other people who are also bridge teachers will hopefully answer, and the eBed staff are on there as well. There is a link on there. Off the top of my head, it's called, if you just type in to Google PBN to LIN or convert PBN to LIN, you will find this online converter. You literally tell it which file you want converted and then click download and it will give you the LIN file. LIN is, I don't know if it's exclusive to BBO, but it's certainly the file type that they use. We've put on our Teacher Zone all of the book 1 and book 2 LIN files, and we should have some more LIN files going on to our site in the near future, the very near future, I hope this week. But let's see if there's any other questions. Can you explain how to get Zoom to overlay over the screen, please?
Do they mean screen share?
Well, I was going to say, what I'm going to do here is because I think that question needs explaining. I'm going to unmute you, Mike, so you could explain what exactly you're trying to do.
Thank you very much.
You're now unmuted.
Thank you. When I was watching you, down the side of my screen, I could see your face over the main thing. When I've taught online, I've got BBO on the screen and I've got Zoom behind it. Is there a way of just getting a little square in the corner to see who's speaking? over the BBO?
Um,
Do you want me to answer that, Steve, or do you want to answer that?
You answer, because I think you've done it, haven't you?
Yes, you can minimize. Yes, hi, Mike. Thanks for joining us. You can minimize your Zoom so that you have complete view of your BBO screen when you're teaching. There's a little icon at the top of, if you get into the Zoom page, on the top right-hand side on my screen, there's some functions that allow you to minimize to a small thumbnail. And if you play around with those and click them, I think actually Steve is showing you now.
Brilliant.
It will enable you to go down to a tiny thumbnail, which is what I use when I'm teaching, and then you can grab that and move that to anywhere you wish within your screen. It's very useful.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Right. Okay. Let me just go back to the chat. Now there was actually, can we unmute? There's a question from Peter Edkins. Can we unmute Peter? It was. Let me just see if I can unmute you, Peter. You said teaching children
yes.
safeguarding issues. What was your concern?
I teach bridge at the local primary school. And I run into a problem there because the kids are all at home. I've been trying to set up a teaching environment for them using Zoom, BBO, or hand play. But I've been told by the head teacher that I cannot contact the kids because of a safeguarding issue. She's been also told by the authorities she can't allow that. Is there a way around this?
Well, just sort of thinking off the top of my head, I wonder if you have a BBO identity, and assuming children are allowed to join BBO, which I don't think there's any restrictions, they can add you as a friend, and you could set up tables at allotted times. Or perhaps the head teacher could just, perhaps through the school, they could notify the parents of what times the teaching tables would be available.
Can I just add something here? Sorry, my husband's a head teacher, and actually he's just saying something to me. If it's a safeguarding issue, it absolutely needs to come through the school. So you need to contact the head teacher and actually communicate via them as a workaround.
I have done that, and that's what she reported to me. Said you cannot contact the kids directly.
Yeah, well, I think if that's the case and it's a safeguarding issue, I think that's quite a difficult thing to overcome.
Is there anybody that I can write to try and unlock this problem?
I think I would have to agree with Jax that it has to be from the school, but you could see whether you could invite them, a member of staff from the school, to be on the teaching table at the same time, just to see, so that they can see, maybe offer to do some demonstrations.
Okay, that's a good idea, Lorna. Yeah, thank you.
See what they think. See if they think that there is any risk involved, and then they can do a proper risk assessment, can't they? If they're willing to. Right. Okay. When you run a BBO teaching table, do you have to be a player, or can you just let 4 students play while you watch and comment? Yes, you certainly can just let 4 students play, and you can have additional students as kibitzers as well. And in fact, it's a fantastic teaching vehicle to have your 4 students playing and you advising all of them. But you have to set up the table as the teacher. Let's see, there is a way of running, hang on, David Toxey, there is a way of running multiple tables I can show now.
There is. I think it's a different presentation though. We're going to be doing it, and we will do it later.
So David, if you'd like to just send us a quick email to either myself, Lorna at ebedcio.org.uk, or Jax at ebedcio.org.uk. Our email addresses are on our website. Then we'd definitely like to hear from you. Perhaps it's something you might be willing to take part in. can you save BBO files onto the cloud so a lesson can be prepared for use by another computer at an adult education centre? I'm thinking to myself, probably is the answer.
You can save BBO files in any way you like. I was just demonstrating the folder because we're looking at folders and actually populating those. But when I took you into the export button on the tab, there's lots of other options in there. You can copy links to those specific hands and send them out to anybody. You can send them directly to other users. You can put them back into, there's loads of other options. Click on export and then just flick through them, and you can send a link and put it wherever you like. You can share it on Dropbox. A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
Incidentally, you can look at anybody's files playing record on BBO. Before you log into BBO in the user site, before you actually put your own login and sign in, if you look in My Deals and click on that, you then put your username in. You can put anybody's username in and access anybody's playing history. But the important thing is, if you're in a teaching table and you're playing random deals, as I say, you need to save your files and save your boards, otherwise they won't be stored.
Right, yes, and there's also lots of things like Google Classroom and things like that people are investigating now, where two of you could be putting some material in for lessons and sharing it. I've just seen in the chat box from Mervyn, there is the link. If you can access your chat box there is the link for the file converting. It's called johnfromoran.org.uk, and that's for converting the PBO to LIN files. I'm also told that robots play 2/1. Someone's asked where the LIN files are in the EBU Teacher Zone. So the LIN files for Book 1 are on the Bridge for All Book 1 page, and the LIN files for Book 2 are on the Bridge for All Book 2 page. Those links are almost the first things you see as you enter the Teacher Zone. Let's see. Tony's asking, what is an ACOL robot? I don't think we have. There are no ACOL robots. Am I right?
I saw somebody, I don't know, I've not used a robot myself. I saw somebody's chat message that said that you can get ACOL robots. I know that there is an ACOL players room that you can go into on BBO and play. So yeah, I'm not sure is the answer, but somebody said there is. It's not something I've delved into. The important thing is that actually whatever the robot bids, if you put your cursor over a bid that a robot plays in the teaching room, a little pop-up box will come and it will explain that method and the meaning of that bid. So there are ways around.
Right. Okay. So a few more comments in the chat box about safeguarding. Somebody saying, don't you need to just simply get a DBS check? I think possibly the issue with BBO is also the fact that there are other players on BBO who are around the world, and that you may not be able to block them from your table, or you need to be extremely careful about making sure that your table is only for the people that you've invited. And obviously Jax has covered that at the start of the presentation about whether other people are allowed to join your table. So yeah, safeguarding is obviously quite a serious issue. Are there any fast track LIN files available? I think that
I haven't uploaded them yet. I've done beginning bridge and I've done continuing bridge. I haven't done them yet. It's something we can do, and we will make the file converter available if you wish to do those yourself.
Yeah,
but it's on the list.
Yeah, we've got a big list of things to do this week, and I think there may be some programs out there that will convert other file formats to LIN. I don't know whether Bridge Composer or perhaps some of the Dealer 4 software might actually do it. As perhaps perhaps that's my question to all of you. If anyone knows the answer to that, can they pop the answer in the chat box? Right. Are there any more questions that I haven't answered, or that we haven't answered? And got one new message. Don't think so. Okay. So, Steve, have you anything to add about the recording, or?
Okie dokie. Well, I think basically we can sort of finish off there. What I was going to say is we would love to have some feedback on this meeting, on this tutorial, both in terms of how you found the tutorial. So perhaps if you'd like to sort of respond, you can send an email to me. My email address is stephen@ebedcio.org.uk. I will just type it into the chat now so that you can see it before I go. And basically, we have been recording this. We've also been streaming it onto Facebook and Twitter. I understand we've had something like, in total, about 150 people on this conference call, this tutorial. And yes, it will be available to see afterwards. And any of the questions that we can't answer or haven't answered, or any other questions you think of, please email them to me, and we will deal with them afterwards. And thank you very much for being on this call. Let me just type this email message in. So if anybody wants my email address, it's there in the group chat. So as well as the feedback on this conference call, this tutorial, it would be useful to have suggestions of what else you would like us to deal with, what else you would like us to do tutorials on. Okay, thank you.
Right, okay, and I've just put my email address in the chat box as well. I'll just put Jack's in. She's Jacqueline@ebedcio.org.uk. I think that's right. Okay, so well, thank you. We're just we're absolutely overwhelmed with the attendance, and we've even had some people that we could not attend because of the numbers on the meeting limits today. But I think this has been I think we're happy that we've been able to support you. Do keep in touch and join our forums with questions, and we'll let you know when the next one is.
Well, there will be another one next Tuesday at 11 o'clock, so same time, so that we'll decide what we're going to cover there. But just to let you know, there will be another tutorial at 11 o'clock next Tuesday.
Yeah. And finally, just a massive thank you to Jax as well, who's done most of the work today. Me and Steve have just, clicked a few buttons and answered a few questions. But massive thank you to Jax. That's been absolutely fantastic. And just as, can I say to everybody that, as I said at the beginning, a few weeks ago, we didn't even imagine that we would be in this situation. We would, that we as teachers would be having to get around this technology and teach online. But, trust me, students absolutely will be overwhelmed with enthusiasm if you can start doing this. They will be so pleased to see the other people in their class, to be able to be, to if you can walk them through the process and get them playing online and continuing your teaching, they will be eternally grateful, because they all wanted to learn to play bridge, and you're the people that are going to help them continue. So thank you very much for joining us today. We're going to end the meeting now, and do keep in touch. Thank you, everybody.